Welcome back to the Millennium. Now, in these closing videos, we're going to reflect back, think about the things we've talked about and learned, and how we can move forward. Now, one of the things that is really focused on when you talk about end times theology is that of the rapture of the church, the catching away, being caught up to be with Christ. And unfortunately, sometimes this is about escapism or escaping suffering and tribulation. Now, that's a natural thing to want to escape suffering. I think that's human. But sometimes it eclipses some other things. What I've done throughout this course is try to give you a very broad historical look at the millennial views. We've talked about 4 views. 3 of them we have discovered have some belief, some of their system of theology, as originating in ancient Christianity, all the way up to 400. And then you have the 4th system, dispensationalism, that is very modern. Now, throughout this course, what I've tried to show you is there's a reason that you have these different views and these different systems of theology becoming popular at different times, and how there's shifts and change in cultural thinking, and often, and sometimes unfortunately, this affects the philosophy, this affects theology, and actually, that can be very dangerous. Now, dispensationalism is very popular, and that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that. That doesn't mean that it's incorrect. But when you look back and see why, for instance, as an example, if things get really bad in America, the view of dispensationalism becomes even more popular. It becomes even more studied. And that makes sense. And that doesn't mean it isn't true, but that's just part of this cultural shifting. And that's one of the things I've tried to show, that we have to differentiate between an idea just being popular and what is actually true. Now, with all that said, here's what I want to do going forward. I want you to think about this broad lens that we've taken. What does that mean for us today? As, a millennial might ask, why does it matter? It matters because ideas are very, very powerful. It matters where they originated, where they came from, and it matters where they're going. Sometimes you don't know where they're going. And sometimes we have to understand. An idea can be so entrenched, it is almost impossible to get to the truth. Consider many of the cultural ideas floating around on the scene today in American culture. Where did these ideas come from? Where did they originate? And here's the honest truth. We don't actually know. And this is a huge problem we need to address. Not so much to have that knowledge as to understand how we can move from one idea to another without really knowing what we're doing or why we're doing it. A popular idea is not necessarily a good one, and many times popularity and truth do not go hand in hand. Think about this. How many centuries did the geocentric worldview prevail? How many? Galileo challenged the church, but they didn't budge. Did that mean that the earth was the center of the universe? And that the heliocentric view was not true? No, of course not. It just meant the truth was not accepted, at least not yet. And of course, at some point, unfortunately, it was not until the 1800s, the church had to accept the truth. My point being that just because an idea is entrenched and accepted does not mean it is true. We should question. We should look for the root of a problem and see if it stands up to critical inquiry. Sometimes we have to act like the Romans when we're looking for the root. We literally have to dig it up. Studying the millennium opens the door for us to realize how much we really don't know. But it also demonstrates how philosophical bulwarks can be dangerous if we do not uncover ideological roots. As we have said all along, what you believe, your belief system, is going to determine how you think, how you act, how you live your life every day. It's time for you to know what you believe.